I work in a local high school as a school social worker, where I meet with students to try and make their lives better overall and see if I can do anything to help them out. Recently, I did an assessment where I sent out a survey asking the students what kind of things I can get them to help them out in the future. Here are some of the responses. Tutoring, yeah. A new PlayStation. Taylor Swift tickets. I'm glad they were being honest, but I can't do that. I would also get responses like heat, food stamps, and a job after high school. Now, this is pretty par for the course for those in the helping professions, but every day I'm seeing Gen Z face more and more unique problems. I know, classic Gen Z whining, but there is truth to the fact that this generation, unlike any other, has faced problems unique. Gen Z, which as the US Census defines, is the generation born between 1997 and 2012. They have actually surpassed millennials as the largest generation, and yet we know very little about the world that they are brought up in. The Gen X, millennial, and baby boomer counterparts that round out the rest of our generation, or the rest of our world, were the ones that taught us societal norms, tried to get us involved in the world. But these generations were already adults when the iPhone was invented, when the global pandemic happened, when the economy crashed in 2008. Our oldest members were looking for jobs out of college right when a pandemic forced everyone back inside. What does that do to our idea of being an adult? When once in a generation natural disasters happen seemingly every summer, when shootings claim the lives of our classmates, when a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic took away our sense of normalcy, how can we become an adult in this changing world? Now, I am not trying to come at this from some sort of philosophical nihilist, quite the opposite, actually. I want to point out the good things Gen Z are doing to set ourselves up to succeed in the future. With everything changing, there are things that we can look forward to. Here is how Gen Z is redefining the future. Firstly, by redefining the American dream. For marginalized groups, the American dream has barely ever existed. But now in Gen Z, the American dream seems even further out of grasp. I'm not saying it's impossible to achieve, but it's going to be harder to do it. In the old days, you would work, get married, get a house, retire, and die at the ripe old age of 65. Now, it seems half of all marriages are ending in divorce. Less and less people can afford housing, and you might have to work 3 jobs to just get by. Gen Z is putting themselves in a different path than this standard American dream by emphasizing the right to choose. A global research study of over 1,000 members of our generation found that over a quarter of us, about 27% of people, don't want to have kids. Instead, citing things like putting their own financial security, their own mental health, and their own career paths as a higher priority than bringing someone else into this world. If you want to have children, that's great. But this generation is setting itself apart by redefining the American dream so that anyone can achieve it. For far too long, the American dream has been a one-size-fits-all approach that never fit all. Gen Z is reshaping the American dream so that you can choose how to achieve it. They're also redefining a big part of our culture, college. I know that this is a bit ironic coming from a college TED Talk, but Gen Z is redefining the importance of college, and if we even need to go to it. we've seen studies of the Heisinger report, which studies college admissions. Over the past 10 years, 4 million less students have been admitted to go to college. Whether that be for financial reasons or personal reasons, people are choosing alternative routes instead of going the traditional one. In my own research with local high schoolers, I saw how COVID might have impacted college plans for students. Students taking typical AB or AP and college prep courses actually dropped in numbers over the pandemic, while classes in career prep, like welding, were increasing. Again, this right to choose is setting Gen Z apart by making it so you don't just have to do the one path. If you want to travel the world, amazing. If you want to do an associate's degree or go into a trade school, Gen Z is destigmatizing the pathway for you to achieve and live your own best life. Thirdly, and my favorite part of how Gen Z is reshaping the future is by getting involved in politics. A survey of 2022 voters found that 65% of voters don't think Biden's going to be able to pass any actions into law. And 61% of voters don't think that Congress will also not be able to pass anything. This means whatever issue you feel is important in politics has seemingly been ignored due to gridlock. For our entire lives, we haven't been able to see actions potentially come to fruition based off this gridlock. But Gen Z, once again, is setting itself apart by getting involved. A research global firm, Edelman, found that 70% of Gen Zers are involved in a political or social cause. They are more likely to boycott their employer, their friends, or a different product based off of their political views. Meaning they're not just following the status quo of what you're supposed to do, instead getting involved with what they deem are important topics to get things done. Gen Z came out in droves this past election to vote over things like sexism and racism, things that our current generations of congressmen and senators might not feel are the same as importance. As our average congressman is 57.9, and our average senator is 65.3 years old. Meaning our average senator was born the same year the National Guard was sent in to desegregate Little Rock 9 in Arkansas. People will say that Gen Z doesn't understand politics and we're too young to get involved and sort of make the world a different place. But what you know is that Gen Z has felt pain. They don't want others to feel that as well. Because when I was 10, Sandy Hook happened. When I was 16, Parkland happened. And when I was 18, a global pandemic forced everyone inside to watch George Floyd be murdered on their cell phones. This generation has felt pain and is not going with the status quo. Our first member of Gen Z was elected in 2022 at just 25 years old. And many more are on their way to make the world a different place in politics. Finally, Gen Z is making the world a different place by being more inclusive, by making it so everyone can have a future here. I know a lot of what I've talked about so far have been stressors. College, jobs, politics, whatever that might be. This stress has manifested in a number of ways for Gen Z, with over 42% of our generation receiving a mental health diagnosis. Anxiety and depression rose as inflation, COVID numbers, and our sense of normalcy for the future changed. This generation, however, unlike any others, has sought out support, destigmatizing mental health, making it so that you can see it much more like we would treat an actual broken bone or something, instead of this weird mystical thing that we don't understand. If you are someone who suffers from mental illnesses, Gen Z is fighting to make a future for you. And I want to reiterate, the future has a spot for you. In addition, different ethnic groups, as race discussions have decreased, hate crimes have gone up. However, Gen Z has once again been a leading driver of inclusivity and diversity. Over a quarter of Gen Z are Hispanic. Over 14% are Black, and over 6% are Asian. These are rates higher than any other generation. They are trying to bring race relations back, trying to have these discussions that have currently been outlawed in some places. If you are someone who has felt that this nation hates you for the color of your skin, I want to re-say, Gen Z is fighting for you, and the future has a spot for you as well. And our LGBTQ plus communities. This generation's faced it rough, with our LGBTQ plus teenagers facing higher rates of homelessness, depression, suicide, and economic woes greater than their heteronormative counterparts. As laws continue to strip away rights for these members of our generation, it's important to note that Gen Z once again is trying to be inclusive and help different groups out. A survey found that over 60% of Gen Z are going to use gender-neutral pronouns when addressing someone else. And more importantly, over 20% of Gen Z self-identifies as part of this community. That is more than double our closest generational counterparts. And I have to say this, it doesn't mean that America is becoming more gay, but that Gen Z has been making it so that people can be safe to come out and be their authentic, genuine selves. They can be themselves. If you are in this community, Gen Z is fighting for you, and the future has a spot for you. Now, I don't have the time or the qualifications to talk about every group or problem that's facing society today. Intersectionality can combine these groups and problems to make life worse. What I want to do is reiterate that Gen Z is out here trying to make a more equitable, accessible, and better world for all. However, that is going to take everyone. So to work in our part with our different generations, I'm going to use Robert Keyes' 5 dimensions of social well-being to see how we can enhance society to make it a better place for everyone. They are social acceptance, actualization, integration, coherence, and contribution. Social acceptance is the positive degrees that we hold towards one another. Social actualization is the attempt that you think that society can grow and develop into a better place. Social integration is the belief that you think you are being connected to other people and that you feel that you are a part of society. Social contribution is the sense that you feel that you are contributing to society and that society actually welcomes these contributions. And finally, social connectedness is the belief that you think that society is reliable, understandable, predictable. And despite all these changes that are going on, these 5 dimensions are ways that we can work together with our different generations to try and make the world a better place for everyone. I don't know why we're called Gen Z. I hope it's not because we were felt to be the last generation, but instead the last of the old way of thinking. If we can see the problems of the past, fix them, and work together to build a better world for all, we can do that together. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that Gen Z will be there on the front lines fighting to make it better for everyone. Thank you.